Local legend, guys, the performance painter, artist himself, straight out of Sacramento, Mr. David Garibaldi, everybody.
Natural artist. Like, I loved drawing.
Just a painter, just randomly, just painting paintings, trying
Because
to,
they said you can't do music and art.
you know,
have to
setting the energy before you go under, making sure.
this is now like a collision of my past.
But I always feel connected to them for the sense that I know.
God said, it's time.
All right, boys and girls, we are back at you with another pod. Episode 5 of the Hero and the Sage podcast with Mr. David Garibaldi. Now, he is not a tattoo artist, but he is the most influential live performance painter of our time. And although we are not in the same industries, there's a lot of overlap and a lot of really dope perspectives we get out of this conversation. He's also local to Sacramento. He does a lot in the city, which is very special to me because I'm born and raised here. And for us to be able to make that connection just going down the street from the shop was great. So this episode is super special. I'm glad we finally got to connect. We've known each other from afar for a very long time, and this is the first time we got to meet and make that connection. So without further ado, this is our conversation with David Garibaldi. Are we been live?
Sweet.
Well, at least we got some of that in there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, local legend, guys, for the viewers that don't know, the performance painter, artist himself, straight out of Sacramento, California, my hometown, born and raised, for me anyways. I don't know if you are. Are you born and raised in Sacramento?
I was raised.
Raised, not born. Where were you born?
Born in Los Angeles
Yeah.
area. And then my dad moved us here when we were younger. It was straight up cow town at that time.
Wow.
But this is home.
Yeah.
Sacramento's home.
Well, that's good. Mr. David Garibaldi, everybody. First time meeting you, dude. I can't believe that.
It's crazy. We have messaged, known each other through close mutual friends for a long time. So it feels, maybe this is like relationships, friendships in this new time where you just like get to know people over Instagram.
Yeah, and especially since Sacramento, if you've been here long enough, it feels like Sacramento is a small place. It feels big when you first move here and you don't understand the landscape or who's there, who's who, or whatever. But once you've lived here a long time and maybe you establish yourself and you see other people establishing themselves, there's plenty of people that I've never formally met that I feel kind of connected to in a subtle way, just like through knowing people, through in the same friend groups and stuff like that. Not to mention, if you really respect what that other person does, it's just like I really feel like they're doing something good for the city and like having something new. So some of the things that I wanted to ask you, because you found a niche that really works for you in art. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are artists that can't figure out how to monetize what they do. And not that it's all about money, but there's more artists that are starving to figure out what their thing is than there's not, right? You figured it out. You told me off camera that you thought you were just going to be just a painter, just randomly, just painting paintings, trying to sell some, maybe selling prints. So where did it start for you to start to transform into this performance art that is so unique?
Yeah. Well, before I get to how I started, where I'm at now is really based on just doubling down on my strengths, like growing up.
Sure.
So growing up, being into graffiti, and obviously I was a natural artist. Like, I loved drawing. I loved recreating comic books and then getting into animation. But also one of the sort of like secret weapons of becoming a performer was playing music growing up.
Really?
I played the trumpet from 3rd grade to high school.
Wow.
And the only reason why I stopped was because they said you can't do music and art. You have to pick. If you heard me play the trumpet, you would understand why we're sitting here today.
Okay.
And then also the one other little secret thing was I got into dance. So they became strengths, but they started off as like just simple interests. And then, this is now like a collision of my passions. Performance painting is art, but it's performance. There's musicality, there's presentation, and a bunch of other stuff that I just realized that now you just got to play into your strengths.
Yeah.
And you will, and if you just accept that, you'll become whatever that is. Mine just happens to be performance painting.
Yeah.
So I did not set out to do this at a young age. I didn't start painting until I was 20.
Wow.
Yeah.
So do you feel like that was intentional, that you combined all those things, or did it feel like a natural flow progression to what you're trying to do? Because when you like, you could just be sitting on your couch one day and think, "Oh, I should combine my performance and then this and then doing the paintings," or did it just like, how did that naturally flow into creating what you do now?
Yeah, it was natural until God said, "It's time, like, to do all this at once," and it was in the form of I was painting live at this local nightclub, and that's what I would do all throughout the week.
Oh, so you were doing that.
Oh, yeah, I was just doing but, like, live on the side by the
I know,
DJ.
yeah, there's a lot of people that do that, right?
Yeah.
There's like, oh, and on this, like, I know a few shows that I watch on YouTube and stuff. They have a painter off to the side, and then they'll show the end result at the end of the show, and
Yeah.
then that's like that's actually a good prerequisite for what you do now.
Yes, and so it somewhat prepared me, but I realized, 1, I enjoy painting live in front of people,
Mhm.
and then 2, uh, I still didn't know where that was gonna go until I was out painting. This now really close friend of mine, Kevin Costa, came up to me and said, "Hey, have you heard of Denny Dent?"
Mm.
I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't care." Went back to my painting. He's like, "No, no, no. You," and he starts acting like Denny Dent. He's like, "No, he's like this rock and roll painter. He jumps around, throws paints. He's like the show." It's like, "Cool, bro." I just couldn't visualize what this meant.
Yeah.
Fast forward, I was at his place. He was helping me with my website, and I see the Denny Dent painting. And I asked, I was like, "Is this the guy?" And that's all it took for me. I saw the painting and my life changed forever. So I now had context to all these different strengths that I had
Mhm.
and how they could be combined and presented as a performance.
Right. So was he doing pretty much what you're doing now?
He set the standard.
Yeah.
Denny Dent set the standard for performance painting. Now, there's a term that I hate that's thrown around a lot, which is speed painting,
Oh,
because
okay.
it's so limiting.
Yeah.
It's like speed is one part
Mhm.
of the experience. Speed is important, but it's not the only thing.
How would you describe it ideally?
I would call it performance painting.
That's what I would
You're
initially think.
making the art experience entertaining.
Yeah.
It involves being fast so that you retain the audience, or you retain the audience's attention, and then also presentation and quality work. Like there's all these other aspects to it. But Denny Dent was way before his time. He took it to a level that was just unreal before social media.
I was gonna ask what era he was in.
He was like 80s, 90s.
Okay.
He unfortunately passed away in 2005. I never met him.
Oh, that would've been so cool if you could have met him.
It was. I wish I could have, but I did meet his wife and also his one student. And so this guy
Wow.
Brian Olson, who actually passed away in 2020. So he was 55. Both of them were in their 50s when they passed,
Wow,
which
that's
is
young.
scary.
That's scary, dude.
It's young,
Yeah,
especially like we don't age like we used to now. Like people stay young longer.
for sure.
And so I met them, and when I met them, it was really special because you could tell they knew how much I was influenced by him,
Mhm.
and they also knew how much I respected what he started.
Yeah.
And I feel like they were trying to encourage me, like, look, just keep going. And I talk about Denny Dennett almost every show I can. If I'm doing a keynote along to talk about my story, he's a huge part
It's
of
good.
that early part,
Yeah.
knowing he inspired this.
Mhm.
Now, let's take this to where he hadn't yet.
Yes, right, right. Yeah, because you have different opportunities that he didn't in the era that he was in, but the fact that you're paying respects to him makes you feel like you're a part of a lineage of these artists that is very small group of people. Like if anything, it's just these few people, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's people that do what you do or whatever, but you might have inspired a lot of those people to do what they do now. So I bet, have you seen a surge of people trying to do what you do after you've had success doing it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I
Oh
bet,
yeah.
dude.
And here there's two sides of it. One is I love it.
Yeah.
You know, I love seeing the art form of performance painting grow.
Grow. Yeah.
That's like Picasso being known for cubism, and that's a style of painting. The other side is I'm very competitive.
Hmm.
So when I see it, I'm like, all right, now it's time to turn it up a little bit more. Like I like that.
Yeah.
And there's more and more. And so, I would say we set the bar pretty high, like where we've taken performance art, where we're still taking it. And so I'd say the other side, because I'll do things and then I'll see like other artists do that same thing.
You know
S-
they took it
I
directly.
know. So now I'll put it out there. Now that you guys know I'm watching,
Mhm.
I, I don't shy from continuing to like, I'm going to put some tricks out there that like I know where it came from.
Yeah, it's original enough to know that you were the origin. And
Yes.
then if anybody uses it, for sure, they know where they you know where they got it from.
Yes, but it's also okay with me, because I'm already hoping that because we're trying to progress on our own, we're already 10 steps ahead.
Sure.
By the time they saw it, we moved on to, we're like, we're not even doing that anymore.
Yeah, yeah, they take the trick, but you're 5 tricks ahead of it and stuff. But if anything, it's like a fun game you get to play about
Yes.
putting it out there, letting people take it, and then it's basically like you're single-handedly like growing that art form while also spearheading the innovation of it, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's cool because I think there's a lot of artists that are pure artists, but then they lack the business side of it or the organizational side of it. And you talked about the art forms that you combine to make this, but let's talk about maybe the business side and the organizational side because I feel like that's really where a lot of it happens at after you master your skill, right? Because how do you end up monetizing it? How do you end up getting these tours and all of that?
Yeah.
What was one of the first things that you did that made you feel like, oh, this is going to be something that we could continue to build on?
I think just early on, finding a flow of getting consistent shows. Because
Sure.
my original goal was I just want to sustain creating.
Right.
So once you exceed that, now you're like, what's the next goal? And so I started setting goals of how many shows I wanted to do per month
Mm.
or how much money I wanted to raise for charities through my art by the time I turned 30. Like all these very
Those are
specific
good
goals.
goals.
And I learned early on I needed systems in place. Like I remember looking at my bank statements when I first started, like first few years, and I saw like I'm making six figures. And then I look at my bank account, I'm like, where is it all
Yeah.
going? And that moment where you have to start realizing like where am I spending this money? If I want to build anything significant, I need to put things in place so
Yeah.
that we can continue to do this for decades.
Sure.
And it's still a learning process. I'm not saying that I've gotten it down, but I just realized early on that it has to be more than just, look, I'm an artist, I'm creating, I'm enjoying it,
Yeah.
but I want to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And so first it started with setting the goals, and then two, putting the systems in place to help me sustain just creating constantly. Um, and then I think just you have to what I did, I just started raising the standard of like quality of the work.
Hmm.
It was live, but I couldn't lean on the excuse that like, well, that was performed in 5 minutes.
Right.
Well, don't make it look like that.
Got it.
It can be done like that, but make it look and feel like you spent hours
Because the
on this.
finalized piece is going to live on for however it lives on. So you want that to have hold as much value as the performance did. Because a lot of people that might have seen the performance might want that painting because they were there for the performance, but it also has to hold its value and live on after that. And like you said, you don't want to use the excuse that, oh, it's a 7 out of 10 because I had to paint it like that. But
Yeah.
if I was going to paint it slower, it would be better.
Yeah.
So to get to the point where the quality of the painting was just as good as if you were to, if anything, it turns out better that you did it more intentionally the way you do it because you don't get hung up on all the little stuff and you tend to master the art of breaking down the image. We were talking about this off camera,
Yeah.
but a lot of what you do is understanding the bare bones skeleton of the image so that you could then get the likeness of people with the most basic of shapes and forms. So
Yeah.
has your art always been like, even when you were painting before the performance painting, is that the style that you were doing, or did this develop through you trying to do the performance painting?
Yeah, I think the style developed out of some of the techniques
Yeah.
that I use, and then also the style came out of just kind of like my original inspirations. But I love to draw.
Okay. Yeah.
So growing up in high school, I started taking figure drawing classes in high school. Like I love
I love figure drawing.
figuring out like how does a figure like shift its weight and how does light and shadow work off of it.
And the contours of just moving a
Yeah.
body part.
Did you
And
do a lot of figure drawing?
I self-taught, but it was
Okay.
so fun to do like the contour drawing where you're trying to create an entire movement of a figure with just a few lines,
Yeah.
and then you build up off of that and try to figure out because a lot of people get too stiff when they're drawing a figure, right? They
Mhm.
see the shin bone, it's straight line, and it's a this and a that,
Yeah.
but you don't realize how many curves and how much flow goes into a contour of just a regular stance,
Yeah.
and if you're able to break that down into the most basic contour lines and then learn how to build on top of that, your drawing comes to more life than if you were to do it so stiff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because our bodies are made to move. So you learn how to make this thing that is meant to be in motion,
Yeah.
you start learning about, I guess more so, you start to become more observant.
Hmm.
So doing that at an early age, uh, it gives you an edge. And I think any artist, whether you're 13, 30, or 60, like, go back to just drawing,
Yeah.
because I could not do what I do if I didn't know how to just do the basics of figure drawing, value scales, uh, and even just understanding basic design
Yeah.
too.
Right. And I'd say connecting my tattooing into what you do, a lot of that when I tell my artists that I teach or anyone that I mentor, fundamentals is always going to be key. I mean, in any industry, really, if you have the fundamentals down, I think a lot of people try to get ahead of themselves and get to the more advanced tricks quicker, right? And there is some people that get into tattooing and then they get to like, 2 years in, they're doing the most advanced stuff. But the lack of experience and the lack of fundamentals will shine through always in the long run, right? Because if you're going to build on top of a shaky foundation, eventually there's going to come a point where you're going to have to double back and then revisit your fundamentals, right?
Yes,
Yeah, and I'm assuming that's the same thing with what you do.
absolutely.
Yeah,
So I will get a DM from a performance painter in some other place, and they're like, What's your setup? What's your the flooring, the paint, the brushes?" My first response to them is always, "What have you tried
yeah,
so far?" If there's no response, I don't share.
sure,
It's just my rule, because I can tell you to go get all this stuff, but if you don't understand why we're applying it this way,
yeah,
if you haven't experienced it, then you won't understand. Now, some will come back and say, "All right, I've tried this carpet for the flooring. I've done these brushes, this paint, and it's still not working." Then I'll say, "All right, go try this paint.
hmm,
Go get these brushes.
hmm,
I use this for the flooring." Like, I will give any information I can if I know they've just applied some basics,
sure,
which is just give it a try,
yeah.
you know? But it's right. You have to just, you're only going to do what you've tried out so far, and then just build on top of those fundamentals.
Yeah, and a lot of people get stuck on what they already do, and then they're like, if it's not someone just taking me right to the top, then I just don't even want to try anything
Hmm.
else, which is kind of defeats the purpose of you doing the trial and error in your art, right? And along that path, even though you might fail, you might develop some new things that add to the uniqueness of your own personal touch.
Yeah.
So if you're just trying to look at David Garibaldi and the way he does stuff, and you're trying to go from here to where he is,
Yeah.
you're trying too hard to get your shit to be exactly like yours. When along that path, that's when you develop your own signature, your own, like the same way when you do your autograph, it's going to look different than anybody else's because your hand did it, right?
Yeah.
So it's always going to have that special touch. I feel like people lose that special touch if they don't go through that journey of trial and error.
Now, I'm guilty of this. This is
Okay.
this is why I say this, because I did this early on. I remember talking to Ryan Olson, who was Denny Dent's student, on the phone. We connected, and he was kind enough to make time.
Sure.
So he asked me, he's like, "So what kind of carpet do you use?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm still trying to decide what carpet." I didn't use any carpet on the floor. Now I know, and if you're listening to this, a gem is the carpet not only absorbs the paint so you don't slip and slide, but you get the traction as well. I
Wow.
didn't know this.
That's huge. That's like
He
one of those
It's a
little
little
things.
thing, but do it, because most artists put a drop cloth down because in their mind they're like, "I'm painting like it's their house."
Yeah.
Like, no, you're moving quickly. You'll trip up on it. So he said that to me, and I'm making a list. I'm like, carpet,
Yeah.
and he's like, "You use Sherwin-Williams paint or Behr?" I'm like, putting down, go check out Sherwin-Williams paint or Behr. So he unknowingly gave me this list, and then I went and did it. But I still had to develop with those tools.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like by that point you've done a fair amount of your own stuff to get to the
Yeah,
point you were at. So then when someone gives you that little gem, you're almost able to take it and apply it immediately.
yeah,
And I feel like the people that lack experience might not be able to take it and apply it immediately the way it's supposed to be done, right?
yeah,
So like when I take someone on to mentor as a tattoo artist, very rarely would I take someone on that has just never tattooed before. I understand that apprenticeships are like that, but what I do is a little different. I like taking artists that are at some sort of level that they've done a lot by themselves, but I could tell they're ready for that next level. And as long as I know they made it to a certain level, and they have a right mindset, and I meet them, and they're good people, and they have like this sponge-like mind that isn't closed off because of their own ego, which is I think is a big thing because a lot of people, artists are kind of insecure about their position in the world kind of. So I feel like they take the art and they hold it real close to their heart. So
Mhm.
then they want to convince themselves that they're really good or one of the best when they might have a long way to go, right?
Yeah.
And if you try to attack that or criticize, some people get defensive or they're like, "Oh no, I like doing it like this." And they're too held on to what they know, which is lacks experience, right? So I like the people that are sponge like, the people
Mhm.
that are like, you know what? I like what you do. I respect what you do. I'm ready for new information and I'm ready to take it and apply it. So those type of people, they learn fast.
Yeah, I
They go,
love that apprenticing is such a huge part of the culture of tattooing.
yeah, it's
Like
huge.
I'm actually more impressed of like you naturally become a teacher because of how the culture is created,
Sure.
how it's whatever it's become. That you know that yeah, apprentices will approach you
Hmm.
at some point. You'll decide if it's something you want to invest time into, and but they're watching you work, they're helping you. But are you ever? Is there ever time where you're like, man, I hope this apprentice doesn't like either outshine you, no pun intended, or like step on your style because they're actually learning from you. Say, I'm gonna take this and just go become a new shine. Like,
Hmm.
I guess how much do you have to keep that in mind while you're apprenticing someone?
That's a good question because I mean, as I started teaching more people more things, it is a situation you run into and you don't think it would bug you at all. Now, mind you, just to clarify, it doesn't bug me that someone would become better than me. I think that's the point of a master and apprentice, right? Is like if the student doesn't surpass the teacher, how good was the teacher really,
It's true.
right?
Yeah.
So you have to be okay with that. And I think I have a lot of mentors in my life that aren't even tattoo artists. They're life mentors. They've been through a lot. They've been through a lot of their own spiritual awakenings, their own adventures in business, and they've gotten successful. And a lot of the advice I got is if you want to play this role, you have to really step into the role and understand your position.
Mhm.
So if your position is the teacher, and the reality of being a teacher is that you cycle a student in, they become good, they become great, and then they go off into the world with what you've given them. You have to be okay with that because that's your position,
Yeah.
right? But the thing that gets to me is a lack of gratitude, right? Like if someone doesn't pay respects at all, or they just, let's say I taught them everything I know, and then they go out into the world and say that they're self-taught,
Mhm.
and they don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a
Or
little
like me
different,
not crediting Denny Dent saying,
right?
I started this movement,
Yeah, you're like, I wasn't influenced by anybody.
Yeah.
I created this in my garage with no input,
Yeah.
and it's like, I think that people get too hung up on the like, oh, I taught myself. Like that's a real good thing. I like saying I had mentors. I like that because it's like the fact that you had mentors means that you were seeking out good information
Mhm.
and you've gathered the best of it and then thrown out whatever maybe didn't work for you and you created your own little ecosystem of skills, right?
Yeah.
And for me, when I was first starting to teach, I just felt I had a knack for it. The way it flowed out, the way like I didn't even have to think about what I was saying, it was just flowing out. So I was like, okay, I have a thing for this. I caught myself teaching people that A didn't ask to be taught or just teaching too freely to people that maybe didn't deserve it.
Mhm.
And that's where you learn a lot of lessons at, right? Because there's a lot of people that'll take, the biggest thing about taking on an apprentice, which is actually a bigger deal than people think.
Oh, I believe that.
It is a
It's a
lot of
lot of
energy.
investment.
And you got to think, I've spent my entire life, I've been tattooing for almost 13 years now, and it's taking a lot of my potent years and just giving it to somebody.
Yeah.
And in the giving is a lot of work. It takes out time and mental energy from my day, especially if you want to do it the right way. So it's not just all willy nilly. Oh, just teach me what you know. Just apprentice me. It's like no. It's basically like me having a child. Like I have to birth and then take care of to a certain point, right? So I really enjoy it. But in the beginning years, yeah, I was just teaching anybody. I might teach someone everything I know, and then they go out into the world. As soon as I teach them, then they want to quit, right? They're just like, oh, now that I know this shit and I'm making money, I could go do whatever the fuck I want. So I don't
Mhm.
need you. I don't need any of this. I
Yeah.
could go move to fucking Miami and uh, I do whatever I want. I can
Yeah.
make a ton of money just by myself, right? And I think that some people just kind of um and rightfully so, when you're on this journey, you get to this selfish thing. It's your journey.
Mhm.
From my perspective, your perspective, you're living your journey from your eyes, your perspective,
Yeah.
your own self-interest. So am I, so is somebody else. I fall into a slightly like selfless position where I like giving out information. I like seeing people grow. But then the people that are really like selfish to their own thing, they don't want to give credit. They don't want to, just show that type of respect and gratitude. Someone that I teach that shows gratitude, it fills me up and makes me feel great. You could do whatever you want. You could, if you tell me, hey, I just felt inspired to go move to LA and try to apply what we've created and expand it to the world and all. I'm like, great. As long as like they're showing gratitude.
Yeah.
It feels good when they show the gratitude, I feel
Yeah.
like, you know?
I'm in this teaching phase now.
Yeah,
So I talk about this a lot, but the paint method.
sure.
And I kind of developed over, this like talking about it at keynote events and it's about passion, action, intent, new and teach. And I
Whoa.
sort of uh retroactively looked back on my life in that form,
Sure.
how I started to where I'm at now. But being in the teaching phase, it's it's a new growth era for me. Like I've had online students where I'm teaching them how to be an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
So
Entrepreneur.
I'm
That's
not
cool.
at the place yet to take on. I've taught a couple people how to do performance painting, but
Mhm.
not
To the
like
degree
to
of
the degree that you're doing apprenticing. But for entrepreneurs, which these are just principles that anyone can apply no matter what style of art you do.
yeah,
And so I have these handful of students that I'm learning about what their needs are as students. I'm learning what how I need to fulfill those needs as a teacher as well.
yeah.
I was just lucky enough that my mentor was my teacher growing up. He was my animation teacher. Uh, I never thought I'd see him after high school.
Wow.
So when I didn't graduate high school, he called me like a few years after I started my career. He's like, "What does this reporter tell me you didn't graduate high school? I thought you took care of it." I was like, "Oh no, I got my GED."
Yeah.
He's like, "You sure?" Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got my GED. Fast forward like 10 years after that, he calls me out at a dinner we're having. He's like, "So when'd you get your GED?" He kind of asked me these questions, and I had to confess. I was like, "Bro, I never thought I was gonna see you again." And now he's my lifetime mentor. And I had to be honest, but I say this because I got to learn from someone who teaches very well,
Right.
and the culture that he created around how we learned is why I am where I am.
Mm.
And so, and he didn't do it for selfish reasons so that he'd be known as his teacher 20 years later in my life.
Right.
He just wanted to create amazing students. I'm one of hundreds
Wow.
of extremely successful artists and creators. So I think about this phase that I'm in now in the beginning, like, man, I have a lot to learn
Yeah.
as a teacher now. And also one of the things I have to get over is to remove myself as the artist and say like, look, what positive imprint do I want to leave on this world? And that can be through
Right.
passing down this knowledge and making sure that it's applied in their life.
Yes.
They have to go be successful for this to mean anything.
Yeah.
I can't be selfish about it.
No, and it gives us like a whole new layer of purpose onto what we already do, right?
Yeah.
Because there is a cap. Well, it feels like there could be a cap to just, I could tattoo till the day I die and that's it, and I'll probably be fine. I'll probably make good money and I'll feel good about the work I'm doing. But there's something bigger than that that you could be a part of. Do you think that just because you're good at something that you could be a good teacher, or do you feel like some people have a more of a knack for teaching than others?
Well, now that I've been teaching a little bit, I realize that just because you're great at something does not mean you're a good
Right.
teacher.
That's what I believe.
And but it doesn't mean you can't learn how
Yeah.
to teach.
Sure.
And I say that from experience. I'm learning how to become a better teacher.
Hmm.
I'm learning how to simplify concepts into a pathway.
Yeah.
And for example, this studio is a classroom.
Mm.
So this was developed and partnered with Highlands Charter,
Okay.
they teach adult education. They help adults like myself who don't have a high school diploma, and they not only help them get the diploma, but they also help teach them a career technical
Yeah.
education.
Develop skills and
Yeah,
stuff.
so
Yeah.
like truck driving or beauty. So when I met them last year, I was like, they asked me, they said, "Have you ever thought about teaching?" I was like, "Not really. I'm not really like teaching,
Hmm.
but I'm into like developing programs."
Sure.
And so when this opportunity came to develop programs for them, like production pathways, and I had already started doing my entrepreneurship courses as well. And so as we developed this, I was like, this has to be a place where we can help build the skills of students in production pathways.
Yeah.
So creating a content studio. And I've been blessed for the opportunity for them to, give me to create these programs, but I'm also learning how do I communicate these ideas through a path. So I'm learning. I'm not a great teacher yet,
Sure.
but I know it's a skill, just like I'm not the best artist in the world. But I know by using that as an example, I can develop that over time
Yeah.
with intention.
Sure, and I think that through the process of trying to bottle up what you've learned in your career in a digestible form, you create a form or a pathway of teaching that is unique to the way you're teaching, right?
Yeah.
So it might seem like some of the knowledge of art or entrepreneurship is generally the same depending on who you're watching. They're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, they just bring up some of the same topics," but I think for the way some people deliver what they know and how they package it, so to speak, it's either more digestible or less digestible to an audience, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I'm trying to become what I wish I had when I was younger and trying to package these in a way that my young mind would be able to absorb and apply, right? And even if you're speaking to adults, you have to make it almost like I heard the saying before, just make it 5-year-old simple.
Yeah.
Just kind of try to make it at the most bare bones level, how to explain it, because it's just easier to absorb and then to apply. So I think a lot
There's
of that's
a
the skill.
Einstein quote about that. Einstein used to talk about, if I can't explain this to like a third grader,
Maybe that's where I got
then
it
I
from.
don't understand this concept.
Sure,
It probably is because it's like a famous quote of his.
sure.
And to hear someone at that intellectual level say that, because it really, I just think that whether you're an artist or you're starting a business, you have to develop the skill of communication.
Hmm.
And yours may be unique to you. It can involve colorful language, or it could be proper, whatever it is, it still has to be developed. And I would say that aside from just creating, that was definitely one thing that I've intentionally tried to work on from the beginning,
Yeah,
is just how do I communicate better on stage, in cameras, or even like a pitch deck. If I have an idea, I want to
right.
get people on
Yeah,
board. But communication in general is a secret superpower for artists if you want to grow faster
yeah. I
in your
couldn't
career.
agree more, dude. And I feel like there's a lot of artists that hate the concept that they would have to become something else besides just an artist to become
Mhm.
successful. But I think in any trade in life, your life experience and the skills surrounding outside of your profession are going to be the things that accumulate and manifest itself in your profession to make it more unique or more just better, you know?
Yeah,
So funny story, I'm like a introverted person, believe it or not,
that's hard
right?
to tell.
I
It's
I
hard
know
to
people say that.
agree with.
People say that, and I mean, we could get into what extroverted introverted really means and how it manifests itself in your life
Mhm.
because you just got to know how you are naturally and then learn how to adjust from there, right?
Yeah.
But through tattooing, the necessity of communicating with clients and communicating my ideas for designs that are maybe a little more unique, so you have to basically pitch them on it.
Mhm.
um, Through that necessity and me feeling awkward in some situations, I took on the challenge of becoming a better communicator.
Yeah.
And I started seeing these as skills just like any other thing, right? Some people just think that they're not good communicators, so that's just the way they are. I
Mhm.
was born this way, and it's just the way I am, and I just have to deal with it. And I'm like, yeah, but all of these things can be developed if you open your mind to them. So the art of oration or articulation and stuff has been like a big thing, which is why I even started a podcast because
Yeah.
I I find myself now that I've developed some communication skills talking a lot to my clients and having these conversations that are very potent conversations, right? Even with my mentors, I learn a lot from them. The conversations I have with them, which no one will ever hear, are so just good
Mhm.
back and forth between two intelligent people type thing. And if I could bring that into my art form or what I do, it just makes it that much more sweeter, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know why some people just shy away from it completely and almost talk shit about the people that take on that challenge, you know?
I mean, I understand why they would, because here's two artists talking about communication,
Yeah.
but also we're crediting our any success to that being a part of it. But I understand why, because they're like, look, I already have this skill to create. It's hard enough. And I just communicate so much better in color and line,
Yeah.
which I understand. I just think that there's so much more opportunities to keep creating if you can start building skills outside of that creativity.
Yeah.
And you just look at, well, what do other successful people do? And I just want a little bit of that. You don't have to go become a public speaker. Just find that as one discipline to grow in.
Yeah.
And then, you start working on that. There's another one. There's always another discipline to take on.
Yeah, and I think in this day and age, I can't think of too many situations where someone was only good at what they do and then they're just the most, I don't want to say popular, but most successful at it and stuff. Like maybe back in the day someone would just be like in their studio or their room or their office painting all day. They're going crazy in the head and they're creating these masterpieces.
Mhm.
A lot of those guys only get famous after they die.
But that's romantic.
Yeah, exactly. But it
That's
creates a different type of communication that was unintended. They die, and then they have this romantic story behind the pain.
mhm,
So there was even communication in that.
mhm.
It was a little more abstract than what it is now. So now that the market is so saturated, everyone has their shit out there, and it's like now if you want it to just be a passion, just go ahead and just do your art form, sell some paintings, sell some prints, but you might have to do something else for a living
Yeah.
to maintain it. If you want to make it to where this is what you do, this is who I am, and this
Mhm.
is a part of just your entire life. You don't have to go work at Home Depot and then go home and hopefully sell a painting.
Yeah.
If you want to make this your thing, you have to take the bull by the reins and fucking just figure out what skills you need to get better at to make it a full circle thing that develops. Because in any profession, doesn't matter what it is, you could be in sales, you could be in just whatever, you could be in doing eyebrows and stuff. How you present it, how you communicate it, how you package it, the quality of work you do, the products you might partner with, like all of that creates the ecosystem that becomes how you make your living.
Yeah.
So some people take on the challenge and some people don't. But I want the listeners to know that there is a pathway for you to do more than what you're doing. A lot of tattoo artists get stuck. Like, what is life now? Like, am I
Mhm.
just is this just it? Am I just tattooing the rest of my life? And I don't. Not that they don't want to tattoo, but what is bigger than this? Like, where is it? I
Yeah.
found it maybe in teaching and stuff like that, maybe doing content. But for some people, they don't know what they want to do. And
Yeah.
it's sad, but a lot of the older tattoo artists that are so well known and they're legends in our respective industries, they're trying to figure out now as they're 60 years old, how are they supposed to separate and just figure out the next step. So now they're trying to do conventions and hosting conventions.
Yeah.
They come out with a product. But it's almost like now they're scrambling to figure it out when they had their whole lives to kind of develop something. So now in this more open-minded day and age, I feel like be open-minded to developing skills. Like you said, you don't have to be a public speaker.
Mhm.
Just develop some skills so you're not putting all your eggs into this one basket. And what's cool is I'm not saying that you have to go outside of tattooing and become something else. Like I said, it's just a little bit of these skills will all play a part into what makes your process unique.
Yeah. Now, uh, but back to I want to go back to the discipline in the art now.
Okay.
So when I prepare for my live shows, it wasn't until more recently I actually started rehearsing more, because that's really how I
And
started.
you didn't do that before.
Well, when I started, I would do the portrait over and over again
Oh.
until I learned. And then as time went on, I rehearsed less and less because I just started getting comfortable.
Mhm.
And something, I don't know, well, I mean, there was definitely some recent events in my life that really opened my eyes to just appreciate the opportunity I have to prepare and rehearse and do this stuff. And now that I've been doing it, along with some other disciplines with like running more, I'm focusing on, I need to rehearse for shows now. I need to do the portraits once, twice, three times, five times until I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Even if I know I could just go wing it.
Yeah.
I just want that familiarity in the moment. What are things that you practice now as a tattoo artist where you're like, I've got to work on this particular skill set to stay fresh?
Sure, that's a huge thing, and I'd say in tattooing, especially the style that I do, a big thing is being able to take some of the more common ideas that people come at you with all the time and then create new compositions and new ways of creating it, right? Everyone wants I don't know, what's the most basic black and gray tattoo? A lion and a clock and a rose or something, right? And they'll ask for that specifically.
Should be like a bingo thing or a drinking game in your studio. You know,
100%.
when someone asks for that, you got to take a shot.
Yeah, 100%. And then everyone would understand why too.
Yeah.
But being able to take the most basic of ideas and either through composition or changing up the imagery or how you blend all of the images, creating a new way of communicating the idea. So even in your composition or design, you're actually communicating an idea differently than maybe someone else did. I might be able to take the same elements that someone else used,
Mhm.
recompose it in the way that I think, and get a totally different message across. So there's so much value in composition, especially with tattooing, because it's the human anatomy. So for me, I've done a lot of behind the scenes of uh, studying even the direction of the muscle fibers of a body, right? So that you know which directions and angles that you have to complement or contrast, and doing designs outside of the necessity of a client. So making sure that you're exercising your design and art skills aside from having to do it,
Yeah.
doing it when you have free time so that you could keep it fresh. The hardest thing for an artist is like if someone says do whatever you want,
Mhm.
that's actually hard
Yeah.
for a tattoo artist
Yeah.
because it's
Any artist.
any artist. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
Unlimited time is like scary,
it's
you
scary.
know?
Yeah.
But what cuz I enjoy the pressure.
Mhm.
I enjoy give me the limitations and let me know, give me the less time and
Yes.
I will figure it out.
And that's why we like a little bit of direction. And some people are actually, they think the opposite from a client's perspective. They're like, oh, what if I just told you to do whatever you want? That would
Mhm.
be great, right? And I'm like, it wouldn't be ideal. I would want to exercise my ability to extract what your little information you're giving me and
Mhm.
creating something that you don't have no clue how the fuck I just connected my mind to your mind in that
Yeah.
moment. And then when they see that happen and they're like, I don't know how you did that. Like you literally connected with, I didn't know how to communicate what I wanted, but you took the small information that I had and you turned it into something amazing.
Yeah.
And that skill right there is a game changer to me.
That's like magic for
Magic.
people.
Yeah.
To us, creating is something we just do. We don't even think twice about it. It just comes out. But having those challenges with some direction, some time constraint, budget constraint, you learn how to get that out. And even through that process, you think you're limited, but you're still creating magic for your client.
Yeah, and I think there's even something a little more special when it has something of the client's spirit in it because if I just did there's been times when people told me to do whatever I want and maybe I created something I thought was cool, but I'm trying to create something that's just objectively generally cool as opposed to something that has like a personal touch or something that is specific to the client.
Yeah.
And that's cool, but at that point I'm just trying to create something that's aesthetic, right? And when I do that, to me it lacks a little spirit unless there's like something that's a little inputted in there.
Mhm.
There's always some clients that give you the hardest situations with the descriptions. There's some people that'll send you entire
Oh
Microsoft
God.
Word just and half of it is poetry. It's not
Yeah.
even like tangible stuff,
Now,
right?
give me bullet points.
Yeah. Dude, they go crazy with it.
Yeah.
And I don't mind it. I just think that some people you have to meet expectations about what is going to happen, right? Some people want 20 things on their upper arm.
Mhm.
And I'm like, "All right, look, those 20 things could be throughout your entire sleeve. We
Mhm.
don't have to just do the upper arm." So just aligning the expectations first and then extracting what's most important and then through extracting what's most important to them knowing where that lands on the arm or on the leg or on the wherever.
Yeah.
um a couple key points about about designing on people, I think of it like jewelry or like accessorizing their look, right? So around the forearm, around here and here is important because it's the first thing people see when you go to shake a hand or you go to pay for something. The upper arm is important because it's bigger. It's more the centerpiece of the entire sleeve because there's more space and more area, right? And then you get into the inner arm, it's closer to your heart. It's something that's a little more for you more than it is for everyone else. So when I describe that to the client like that, they start seeing the sleeve in their arm differently than just getting some tats, right?
Yeah.
And so then that's when I start to extract what's important to them. Sometimes with the limitations that I feel like are the most difficult or the most like out of this world, if I could just push through that uncomfortability, those become the best pieces I've ever done.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how I prove that to myself over and over again, no matter how uncomfortable I get and I go and I push through it and I create something. Like, wow,
Yeah.
that is special. Like I thought that was going to be hard and like just not good and then it ended up being something that's a little more innovative.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something recently. The one that's behind me right now, it's this Post Malone.
Mhm.
So normally I do the head and shoulder portrait, which I've done head and shoulder portraits of Post Malone, but the client sent me this full body, no shirt, all the tattoos, him
Uh,
looking down. It was
yeah,
black and white, and then they said, "But we want color." So I'm like, "Okay, any artist could translate that image 100 different ways."
sure.
And so what was cool was the client was with me last night when I was doing it.
Oh,
They were
really?
here. Yeah, it was a huge group and I did like 5 paintings, but this was one of them. And so I just turned to them. I said, I did like skin tones. I was like, "What colors do you want me to add right now?"
Mhm.
And then they were like, "Go crazy with color." They were like, "Just no limits." And I was like, "That is music to my ears."
Mhm.
But when I was done, obviously, they were just like, thank you for translating this in a way that we couldn't." And so you just realize that, look, clients have their idea of what they envision, but they're coming to you to communicate that through
Right.
your form. And then also keep in mind whatever came through you in this moment.
Yeah.
Because if you design that same lion clock rose next week, it may feel different, whether it's intended or not.
Right.
It's just knowing that what is on that canvas, body, or actually the actual canvas material, this is happening in a moment,
Yeah.
and getting through that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of art is the moment, you know?
Mhm.
It's the getting very mindful in the time that you're actually creating instead of trying to create you're just too far into the completion of it or you're overthinking the fine details of it and stuff. A lot of it is how it flows in the moment. I try to make sure I feel good in the moment of creating it
Yeah.
and so that that would almost be translated into how the process went and how the outcome becomes, you know?
You have a quote. You sure? I love this quote. What was the quote?
Let it lay where it may.
Let it lay where it may.
Yeah.
I'm stealing that.
Steal it. Steal it.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's like the story of my life. Like,
yeah,
let it lay where it may. And especially working with like splatter paint, is the paint takes a life on its own.
sure.
I'm sure with your style, your techniques with needles are extremely precise, and obviously you're on a body you want to be. But with paint, there's things that it does that I didn't ask it to do,
100%.
and I just have to accept it, and that's part of it. I could paint over it, but most of it I just accept it. That's what it is.
I think it's really cool to come from the perspective of like if you want to get really deep about it, like there's the energy of the paint, there's the energy of yourself, and
Mhm.
then there's the energy around you as it's being created.
Yeah.
And if you get into that and really try to connect with that energy, it becomes something more special than just a commercially created piece, you know?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, let it lay where it may. Although your art form embodies that, it still applies to tattooing. And I think the contrast between what you do and what I do is crazy because you're right, very precise. These needles are very sharp and they
Mhm.
come to a very thin point. And you have to use that. Everything that you see on that piece has been applied with a tiny needle.
Yeah. You can't like do what I do, which is like smudge a little impression here and there. Like, it's precise. By the way, so I have one tattoo.
Okay.
Got it when I was 18, and I got the outline. And the guy's like, "Come back in a week. We'll fill it in."
Okay.
I'm 40. I'm about to turn 41. I have not been back.
Wow.
And it's not, and part of it is like, I don't know if I just got it and I was like, maybe I'm not into this,
Hmm.
And I feel like if I was, I'd be covered in tattoos. But I saw something recently, and
Hmm.
I'm curious how you feel about this. I was on TikTok and I saw this like they put you out. Like there's like these
Yes.
painless quote unquote tattoos. They put you under and then there's multiple artists working on you at once.
Right.
And I was like, that's for me. I don't care what it costs, take my money. But I also know it kind of goes against the grain of feeling the pain or whatever that does to you emotionally and what is going on. But how do you feel as an artist who your life is built on this like this art form of there's pain involved.
Yeah.
And then you see these no pain tattoos. Like
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
So I actually know those guys personally.
Uh-huh.
Great guys, and there's some of the like, well, the main guy, his name is Ganga, right? Shout out to
Yes.
Ganga. He's arguably one of the most popular tattoo artists right now, not from being the best artist, but from how he's structured his business, his brand, and the no pain stuff. I'm sure the no pain stuff has been done before, but he commercialized it in a way that seems accessible and it seems viral. It seems like something that you could harness, and now it's a thing by itself, right? Aside from his shop, aside from everything else he's doing, it's this thing. It's called No Pain by Ganga, which is respectfully, I think it's genius to be able to package it and create it in the way that he has and make it as successful as he has. Now, going back to the purist in me of tattooing, yes, it takes away from the experience. I feel like the experience that the client is having in that situation versus how they're having it in my situation are two separate things.
Mm.
I'm not saying they're wrong for doing it at all because I've been reached out to by doctors to do the same exact thing here in Sacramento, and I've
Mhm.
considered it. Maybe I could
Let,
create,
I will sign up.
hey, you might be my first client,
Yeah,
right?
let's go.
But I would also approach it like try to combine the way I do stuff with the way that is, setting the energy before you go under, making sure we have a clear communication beforehand. The way they're doing it is like these people just want to be blasted. They just want to get the work done
Yeah.
instantly, quickly. Hey, just slap a tiger on the back and just make it. Hey, I got this huge cover up. Just throw whatever you think would cover this, right?
Yeah.
And that's for them trying to get to the end result as quick as possible because they have the money to do it, which honestly, I hate getting tattooed. I would probably do the same thing, but I would do it with an artist I trust, someone that I know personally, and stuff like that. And there's just a lot of trust that goes into that going under thing because going under anesthesia is dangerous anytime you do it.
Mhm.
There's always a slight chance, right? There's a slight chance where, your body reacts to the anesthesia wrong or something like that, which is kind of scary, right?
Yeah.
And then you have 6 artists on you, all putting stuff on you permanently, and you have to trust the fact that either everything was communicated ahead of time or you just don't care and you just let it flow,
Yeah.
right? I just think they exist in two different realms.
Mhm.
As I get older, I find myself getting more in touch with my spirituality and just the way I feel I connect with the way things work in the universe and stuff. And I get really connected to that. So I tend to bring that into my tattooing and makes it a more deeper thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'll expand on that and make my tattooing and the experience that my clients have even more so than it is now, a really deep experience that they could take with them forever. Not just the tattoo, but the experience, what they felt when they were there and stuff. How much were they connected to me and the energy in the room and stuff like that. And then the other thing is like a business play.
Mhm.
It's like, hey, I understand that you want instant gratification. That's how the generation is going. I'm gonna give you that on a silver platter.
Mhm.
And here's how we're gonna do it. I'm gonna put you under, we're gonna knock out your entire back piece and a leg, and then maybe some on your arm. You're gonna wake up a different human being.
Yeah.
I respect both of those. So I operate in this one mostly, the one that is a little more deeper and more experiential. But I could see the value in the other one. I don't mind it. I'm not so purist and old school that I feel like there's tattooing shouldn't be innovated and it shouldn't progress because naturally for something to continue to thrive and exist, it naturally has to progress, otherwise it dies.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tattoo purists and old school guys that hate the idea of tattooing changing. They just miss the way it was when it was almost like this um, gatekept, cultist, small underground thing because they just enjoyed the fact they were a part of a community that was outside of the outside world.
Mhm.
They get to be part of this small community of people that they fit in with and then F everybody else.
Yeah.
Now it's different. Now everyone is accessible to tattooing. There's people that are makeup artists that start to become tattoo artists and they could just buy the best machine offline and just start tattooing tomorrow,
Yeah.
which is so different than the way it used to be.
Yeah. Is there so there is still a lot of like I don't know, not that tension, but
I would say tension. We could
between
say
old school
tension.
and new school in tattoos, in tattoo world.
100% there is. And look, I understand both perspectives because you got to understand someone's life experiences to get them to that perspective of their opinion. And I respect that, although some people might not understand them and they're just like, man, F these guys and all this stuff. It's just like, you got to have empathy for what they've gone through to get to where they're at.
Yeah,
Getting into tattooing now is so much easier than it was not even that long ago, right? The changing of technology with iPads and AI and photography and all the in the machines, the wireless machines and the rotaries and all this stuff. So many things have changed since they were younger trying to learn a tattoo. I understand it was way harder for them to
yeah,
get good.
yeah,
And some people would argue, like, man, there's people nowadays that get into tattooing, and within a year or two, they're better than all the old school artists. And part of that might be true, but you also have tools and information that is commoditized that wasn't back then.
yeah. I mean, so I've told this story before on other platforms, but there was this artist that I really looked up to when I started painting.
Really?
My influences were like hip hop, jazz. I played the trumpet. I was into breakdancing, graffiti. So when I started painting live, that was naturally the style that or the subjects that I wanted to capture.
Cool. Yeah.
And so I started putting my work out to the world. And this is kind of simultaneously I was starting to perform, but also I was putting my work out as fine art. And I got this publishing deal. So then, 2004, 5, I start my posters are out in stores in retail.
Yeah.
I mean, things were popping off fast. And so this artist, Justin Bua, similar style, he was not happy with this. And we had known each other. He actually hired me for a project and we're familiar with each other. But eventually I got this I got a cease and desist from his attorney
Oh, wow.
because I was, encroaching on his style and they were accusing me of stealing it. When I was like, you don't own my influences of hip hop. There are artists who create this. So we just had a falling out. There was no, I got the cease and desist, but I just kept painting. I was like, whatever.
Was that cease and desist random, or did you guys have some kind of report? Because it sounds like you guys were cordial before that, and then did you just get it randomly, or
We
did he?
we had stopped communicating for a while and then I got it randomly.
So he must have felt some type of way,
Oh,
cut
he
off
did.
communication, and then you got hit with the cease and desist.
Yes.
Yeah.
But fast forward 10 plus years later, we do an Instagram live. So
Okay.
he DMs me
Oh man.
and he's like, yo, we should do a live. And I was like, let's go. Let's do it.
Damn.
And it wasn't any like tension because I was very firm and I was
Well,
just
you were
creating,
confident in your opinion about the situation.
of course.
Yeah.
And I respect him as an artist too. So I said, let's do it.
Yeah.
So we do the Instagram live and I was able to explain that look, I'm just creating my influences. But this is what I learned. This is why I brought up the story. He's old school, and when he started, there wasn't drop shipping, and there wasn't shelf space for an artist like him
Sure.
who represented hip hop in a fine art format. He had to fight tooth and nail to get the space on the shelf.
Yeah.
I didn't know this. I was just given opportunities to be on the shelf next to him. So he felt ownership of the space that he fought for, rightfully so, because I understand now after him and I talking what he went through
Yeah.
to get to that. And I have even more respect for him now. Now we're great friends.
Yeah.
But I think new artists don't really understand what it used to take to just get the on the shelf
Mhm.
or in front of the client or to create a consistent opportunity. And whether you need to appreciate it or not or whether you care or not, I still think it's healthy that if you're going to grow in any industry, what do the people have to do that came before you, so that if you're going to have any sense of community, you have a respect for what they did
Yeah.
before you.
Right. No, and I agree completely. And I say this to new artists. Some new artists are very stern in their opinion of, I don't need to even know who the heck that is for me to tattoo. I could just, I'm making great money tattooing. Why do I need to care about anybody else in the world, period? And I'm like, well, technically you don't. But if you really want to hold this close to your being and your heart and you want a sense of community, you're not really going to be the full potential tattoo artist that you want to be unless you realize that you're a part of something that has existed before you it'll exist after you. And there has been a lot of time and energy to get to this point where you could even access this industry the way how easily you have, right? And a lot of people get stuck in their little studios. They're doing their tats. They're making some money. They feel successful. People are proud of them because they don't do a 9 to 5, but they make a living off of tattooing. You go to a convention, especially one of the good ones,
Mhm.
and you see the people there. You see the artists there, and you realize, holy shit, I am a part of something that is way bigger than myself. And you could either take that as competition, or you could take it as bad or whatever, or you could shun yourself away from it and try to hide from it to make you
Mhm.
feel like because a lot of people want to pump themselves up to be really, really, really good, or I'm
Yeah.
the best in my area, I'm the best at this and stuff. You get humbled real quick. You go to a convention.
Mhm.
There's people that are living in the middle of nowhere that are some of the best tattoo artists that you've ever seen, ever,
Yeah.
doing things you never thought were possible, right? I tend to lean into the community because it makes me hold tattooing a little closer to my heart than just a medium at which I make money at, right?
Mhm.
Um, in that community, and I think a lot of people growing up and they're trying to just find a sense of community.
Mhm.
It's why gangs exist. It's why anything exists. It's finding your spot in the world with the people that you have stuff in common with,
Yeah.
right? And no matter how many different walks of life these tattoo artists are, like, I'm very different than a lot of them. I kind of stand out in a good way or a bad way, depending on who you ask. But I always feel connected to them for the sense that I know what they go through being a tattoo artist.
Yeah.
I know what it's like. I know how hard it is to get better and learn or make it past just doing walk-ins, building a clientele that is steady. So I just tell people, like, if you really want to take pride in this, find that sense of community and then become a servant to it. Become like I'm here to add to the community, not take away from it. And there's a lot of people that get into tattooing to take away from the community, but not give to the community.
Yeah. And I feel like that's where performance painting could go. At some
100%.
point, I feel like it could be taught in schools. I feel like there could be all these
I can
sub
see that.
communities around the world that are just trying it out, sharing techniques, and even on a competitive level. I think performance painting could become like something we see on ESPN
Wow.
where they're given the same image. There's three judges, like breakdancing. It's subjective, but there's enough from what I know of a format you could follow to judge it if that's, a place that it can live. And I think even just for therapeutic reasons, like there's a lot to it. And I know that, going into this phase in my life of like wanting to teach more and just wanting to grow more. Look, I'm gonna perform until my body can't move.
Right.
And I'm gonna keep pushing the limits. But I also know that beyond my life, if this is gonna mean anything, we have to grow in this in creating a community of performance painting.
Yeah.
Like when I say I get sick of hearing the word speed painters because I don't spend enough time with other speed painters to talk about like why do you use that term? Or
Mhm.
do you understand, that this is so much more than just speed?
Doesn't speed painting make it feel more gimmicky than it is?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when I get introduced, and here's the thing, when people introduce me as a speed painter, I don't correct them or say anything like that. But given the opportunity when they're like, how would you like to be introduced? I say performance painter.
Yeah.
How would you describe what you do? Performance painter. And I just go back to I am serving an audience and I want this experience to be as entertaining as possible with a painting that can live beyond this.
Yeah.
And so performance involves disciplines like a performing artist, a dancer, a theater actor, uh, any musician on stage. Like the amount of preparation
Yeah.
involved is just, I mean, if this was about a musician doing something fast, it wouldn't be entertaining.
Right.
It'd be a gimmick.
Yeah.
And so I don't want this to be a gimmick, and it's not. And I've seen how it can connect with people all over the world.
Yeah.
And so I would hope that people that call themselves speed painters would really see the opportunity they have to connect with people through approaching it like a performance.
Yeah, because if they just shift their perspective a bit on what they do, they may even be on the cusp of something that could be really great to them, and they just label what they're doing as like a bar trick or something.
Yeah.
Like I'll bust out this picture on a napkin with a pencil and then amaze everybody, and then I go home and whatever, right?
Mhm.
But it's more than that. Do you see yourself being able to evolve this into? You're talking about these competitions, which I completely agree with. It's such a versatile thing that is not there's some things that are very, like, so niche that there's only so many things you could do with it.
Yeah.
This is very versatile. This is
Yeah.
something that could be created in different ways and stuff. With that competition, do you think you might be able to spearhead that competition stuff?
Yeah, I could imagine it starting out as an exhibition competition.
Yeah.
Say just friends of mine that are other performance
You do it
painters
here
around the
maybe.
world. We could start here. I've met this really incredible artist in India. His name's Vilas. He's like this famous performance painter in India.
Yeah.
And there's another guy, Dave Sharp, in the UK. Every time I go to the UK, we link up, and he comes to shows. And there's a kid in Detroit, Evan. This girl Jessica Haas in, I think she's in Nashville or somewhere in the South. You know, I can go on and on,
Yeah.
but it would be cool to start just as a concept to say, look, let's just come together for charitable reasons.
Mhm.
Let's just have fun with this.
Yeah.
And then maybe there's a kid watching it that's like, I could be all of them and come to eat all of our lunch.
Mhm.
And we could inspire someone to work harder than us, create better than us, and take it to places that we can never imagine. I'm waiting for like the Justin Bieber of performance painting to pop up, and I'm like, yo, that inspires me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what
And
I
you're
would
the
hope.
usher to the Justin Bieber.
Oh, I mean, definitely a
And
better dancer, but yeah,
oh,
no,
damn.
no, he's a better dancer.
Okay. I was about the hot take right now. We're about to
No, no, I love Usher. I
yeah,
love,
Usher's great.
and I would honestly, I look at a lot of entertainers as inspiration.
Yeah.
You know, growing up, I would watch, actually, not growing up, as I started my career, I would watch concert footage of U2 and watch how Bono commands a stage,
Right.
to like watching Jay-Z and, you know, just all these greats that just have great stage presence.
Yeah.
Prince and Bruce Springsteen, I mean, there's so many. And just taking a little bit, but learning about stage presence and like this moment you can create live for people. And I'm not singing music, but I'm using music as the conduit
Yeah.
for this art and somehow that image connecting with the audience.
100%. And I noticed that about your performances is your stage presence is better than a lot of, rappers or musicians that are out today. They're relying on the viral hit song to carry them, right? People singing along with it. They don't have to do much. They just have to be there, right?
Mhm.
But the people that embody the whole show, then you get to the Taylor Swifts of the world and the people that are putting on shows that are just above and beyond an experience. Um even like Travis Scott like created his own ecosystem of a show that and I saw this article about a Taylor Swift show that said that when she visits a town or something and does a show, it ups the economy because there's so many jobs that are involved. There's so much money that's filtered through just creating the show that she does everywhere,
Yeah,
which
that's
is
incredible. And we're
insane.
talking about all over the globe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is just her stopping for a couple days in a place and it creates this entire production
Bro,
of
I am wearing 2 Swifty
no,
bracelets
you're not.
because I went my stepdaughter,
That's cool.
she got us tickets to go watch the movie, and then this some random person came by, like, "You want a bracelet?" I'm like, "I want a bracelet." Put it on, then my daughter gave me the other one because she saw the movie recently, and so, look, I'm an artist in Sacramento, and I'm walking around with Swifty bracelets, like,
Yeah.
talk about the influence of someone on this globe is, and you have to respect that, it just goes back to having these strengths, working on them, and they're so unique to all of us.
Mhm.
And then giving yourself that personal challenge and raising your standards, just asking and saying, how far can I take this?
Yeah.
Like I started painting at the Fox and Goose. It's a pub in downtown
It's my
Sacramento.
favorite breakfast spot.
I love that spot. Yeah, it's known for breakfast. And I'm like, I used to paint live there in the evenings. And then, at some point, I'm like, where else could this go?
Yeah.
And then we do these things. And even now, I'm like, where else could this go? Like,
Mhm.
I'm just staying curious. And I think if you stay curious enough about how could I grow in my craft, where else could I take this?
Yeah.
That'll inspire what your next move is, and how to approach your next creative phase.
Right. 100%. At what point were you able to make this your thing that you make your living off of? Because there had to be a point where you were just doing whatever you had to survive, and then maybe you were doing live painting on the side. At what point did you figure out the the consistency to be like, okay, I'm gonna drop everything and just focus on this?
It was right away.
It was right
I
away.
I was I was crazy, bro. Like when I started, I would walk out of my one-bedroom apartment that I was about to be evicted out of to go walk to this car that eventually got repossessed, telling myself, "I'm a famous artist and I sell art around the world." Like I would walk and like really embody this.
You're like manifesting it as you're living it. You're just like,
Manifest my world did not reflect it, but my mind was
right,
there.
yeah,
And so it was pretty crazy. And I would not recommend anyone else to do this because it's, I went through a lot of really hard times, early on, but I just dove into it right away. My parents were very encouraging growing up, but they're also both entrepreneurs,
that
and
helps.
it helps. And I saw them pursue their passions and make a living off of it. So I knew that it was possible. And I was just kind of crazy enough to just start right away. So I was 20 years old, you know, didn't graduate high school, lost my job. I got fired from my day job, which was at Wells Fargo
Hmm.
as a phone banker. And I was like, I have to make this work. I know if I go paint live, I'll sell something during the week. I can do a trade at a restaurant for a mural for
And
some
you could probably
food.
live off a minimal. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
you don't need a lot to survive. You just need to get to the next thing and then continue this journey. Now, do you say that you don't suggest people do that because during that phase it was almost self-sabotaging to get to this path? But don't you think there's always going to be some of that in when you're trying to carve out a path that is unorthodox from the normal path? There's
Mhm.
always a space there where it gets a little like precarious and you don't know if it's going to work or if it's, maybe you got a job offer, you turned it down because this is what you want to do. Like, there's always got to be some of that, right?
Absolutely. I would just say that I learned that I was built to stomach the pain of the journey.
Yeah.
And some people aren't. So I
Yeah.
don't recommend it to everyone because you don't know if you are or not. I would say test it out. But what you'll eventually learn, and I think most entrepreneurs experience this, is there's all these things that come with becoming a professional artist that have nothing to do with art.
Yeah.
And when you start getting to the realm of a entrepreneur, you're running now, it becomes a brand and a company. You have responsibilities to people, to taxes, to
Payroll, there's
record
everything.
keeping,
Yeah.
is everything but art. And so as I've made mistakes, I just look at the mistakes like, look, now, okay, cool, I need to learn from this. And I can stomach that. Like I don't, I there was so much like just stress early on that kind of just, all right, I'm going to swallow this pride, take that lesson, keep moving forward.
Yeah. And
I
I
don't
think,
think that everyone's built for that, but I recommend try it.
yeah. And I guess after you've gone through it, you could look back on it and think about if you knew what you knew now, there's a better way to go about it
Yes.
to get to the same place that you are,
Yeah.
but just a smarter way to do it.
Yeah. I would definitely recommend keep your day job, but like try to sell art.
Hmm.
No matter whether you have a day job or money saved up, but if you can sell art, if you can communicate your idea to someone and they see the value in that, there's an exchange. That's the best place to start. And if you can at least do that, say for a few months, then you have something there. Then you can start developing your exit plan
Yeah.
out of your day job into full-time artist.
Sure.
And I always tell artists this, like, what are you passionate about outside of art? Like, who are
Mm.
you? I was into jazz music and hip hop.
Hmm.
So I painted subjects in a place where they did that. So I was able to sell art right away because I was connecting my art to that location, community, and it was genuine to who I was and
Sure.
am. I would say that if you are into riding horses, like go to equestrian centers and paint live there, show your work, develop partnerships within that community.
Good advice.
You'll sell quicker because you genuinely are inspired and connect with them.
100%.
And so that's really like, that's the best place to start. Keep your day job, but identify what community you enjoy celebrating through the subject of your art and which one can you connect with on a personal level as
Yeah,
well.
that's really good to tell people because a lot of people almost get inspired by the path and then they go gung ho and they have no foundation, no nothing.
Mhm.
Maybe they've never even sold one piece of art and they want to quit their day job.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you could do that, but hey man, this isn't guaranteed, and if you
Mhm.
want to do this seriously, it's better to approach it from an entrepreneur
Yes.
mindset. It's not you keeping your day job so you're not committed to your craft. It's you're so committed to your craft that I'll do what I have to do to support it until it supports itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it right there.
Yeah, dude. Hell yeah.
Man, I know we could sit here and talk for
I know.
hours
Yeah.
more, man.
You got your kids you got to get to and stuff,
Yes.
and you know what? We could always do other episodes too as we get deeper into
Yeah.
it. Maybe I come and do your podcast.
Be definitely I want you to come do mine. And something we're doing on mine now is we're doing like a we're calling it paint by numbers. It's
Okay.
kind of unofficially that, but talking about just art business in the news, like whether it's like people destroying art in museums, and we just kind of have hot takes on that, or like we were talking recently about a Van Gogh and Pikachu
Uh-huh.
collab that went sour. When I used to
Okay.
talk about those things, but it'd be cool to just get your take on those things that hopefully would inspire some other creatives as well.
Yeah, I love it. And that's what this is all about, to inspire you guys and give you guys different perspectives on how to, tackle your lives and your crafts. And it's great having David on here. He's the first guy that we've had on here that's not a tattoo artist.
Honored.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And this is the direction I've always wanted to go, guys. I know a lot of my tattoo artist audience is like, why would you do it without a tattoo artist? This is your industry. But I'm doing it to show you guys that the perspectives on art and just trades in general, there's a certain commonality that happens throughout each of these your path. There's a lot of things that are similar and things you have to go through, and there's a lot of stuff you could pick up from different industries to take into your own industry and create the life you want with your craft. And with that being said, is there anything that you want to plug or anything before we go?
You'd follow me across platforms at Garibaldi Arts, and
Mhm.
then obviously the Paint Method podcast. You can search for it on all audio platforms, and you can watch it on YouTube as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you for being on, and
Yeah.
we'll see you guys on the next episode of The Hero and the Sage.